Hello, everybody. Hi, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. It has been a while, hasn't it? It's mainly been because last week I wasn't feeling too good. So I just decided to rest. And the funny thing is that my natural tendencies is to not rest. Like, even if I was feeling a certain way, I'd most likely push through. But recently I've been trying to give myself grace, and I think that regardless of how I'm feeling, a lot of the time I don't give myself grace. So even if I'm tired, or even if I'm in pain for any particular reason, a lot of the time I just push through. And I don't know whether that is something from my childhood that hasn't been worked on. The thing is that when I was in therapy, my therapist did acknowledge, she did notice that I had a tendency of like taking things on and just kind of piling it on. And she felt like it was linked to when I was younger and made to feel like I was somewhat inadequate. So as an adult, I was like just piling things on to somewhat prove to myself that I'm fully capable. But since that realization, I've been very intentional about the things that I do. So, I do have a few things on, but I feel like I manage my time well, and I manage it well. So it's not like I'm trying to do those things all at once. I've managed to do it in a way that it's, my time, it's just spread out. So for example, I have a hiking group that I run. I started this hiking group during the pandemic. At some point, I was running this hiking group once a week. And the thing is, it's not like I'm getting paid. I wasn't getting paid for that hiking group. It's just something that I had created during the pandemic. And I'd get messages, from the members of the group. There's over 200 people in the group. I'll get messages from the people in the group, and it would almost be like I'm having to deal with like customer service inquiries and things like that. And the main reason why I felt like I needed to keep going was how I found myself having conversations with people on a weekly basis, and it's almost like they didn't have people to have these deep conversations with. But when we're in the middle of nowhere, somehow these people just spilled out their guts to me, and I just felt like I need to keep going because I'm this support system for these people. And regardless of the fact that there's over 200 people in the group, it's not like 200 people would arrive. Like each meetup, sometimes we'll have one family turn up, sometimes we'll have two families turn up. So there was a point when the meetups were on Sundays, and and this was during the pandemic. So it was okay during the pandemic because physical church wasn't really a thing back then during the pandemic. However, when physical church returned, I needed to be in church. I felt like I needed to be in church, and the presence of church is, it's just nicer to be actually in church. Additionally, Sunday school is important for children, in my opinion. So I had to pivot and figure out how to carry on doing the meetups and stuff like that. And it was very difficult for me to find a suitable time to do so. So I made it Saturdays. But the thing about Saturdays is that we have a whole lot of things that go on Saturdays as a family. Saturdays are very busy for us. So that didn't really work out. And the thing is that the group, a lot of them had opinions. And this is the thing about the group, is that they all had opinions, but they didn't turn up. So it was kind of like, why are you sharing your opinion? Because if I run it on a Saturday, you're not going to come. If I run it on a Sunday, you're not going to come. If I run it on a bank holiday, you're not going to come. It's all fun and games joining a hiking group until you have to actually hike. Nobody ever really wants to hike. My family love hiking. The boys, my kids are very annoyed that we don't hike as often as we did during the pandemic, because there was times that we would perhaps hike maybe a couple of times a week. But now it's because just due to time constraints, I changed it and I made it ad hoc. So it might be a thing where we hike once a month, twice a month, once every 3 months kind of thing. But I've just changed it because I had to give myself grace. It was actually quite exhausting because there was a time when during the pandemic, I'd actually go and test the trails before each hike. So I'd actually go and do a hike, and most of these hikes might be like 2 hours long. And the only reason why I did that was because of the likely, because it's a family hiking group, I just didn't want it to be a thing where a person with a pram, was unable to do it, or somebody that was, physically unable to do it. So I had to pick hikes that were a bit more easier. So I'd go and test it, see if it was, suitable for families of all ages. And then I'd say, yeah, cool. But then that was exhausting because obviously I run a company or two, I run a few companies. And I was thinking, how am I going to keep doing this? This is not sustainable. There was a lady in my group initially who used to test the trails as well for me. And she's retired. So it was very useful and just lovely having her in the group. But then she left and I was distraught. I was like, what did I do? Is there any reason? She was like, it's not you. So, so as soon as she left, it kind of was like I was on my own to deal with testing the trails and things like that. And I just didn't like that. It got to, there was a time when my husband and I would do it together, every now and then. But overall, the testing the trails just wasn't something that was, it just wasn't something that could continue. So I ended up making a big announcement on the group because respectfully, most of the people didn't turn up. So I had to make this decision on my own. Additionally to that, I had made several, keep in mind that there's over 200 people in this group. I've made several announcements saying, I'm looking for admin. I'm looking for anybody who's willing to lead. I'm looking for anybody who's willing to take over. Because honestly, I was thinking, God, I'm so over this. I'm willing to, I was just looking for people to take over. And the funny thing is, I would have at least one or two or sometimes 5 messages every other day saying, when is the next hike? And then if I threw the hike, only one would say their comments. So I was just like, I'm going to make this decision. I'm going to make this executive decision just to give myself grace. And it was, we're no longer going to be testing the trails. If you want to come on the hikes, come. If you don't. If you have a pram, don't worry, we will help you. Kind of thing. We will help you. But at the end of the day, it's enough. The hikes will no longer be weekly. They will now be ad hoc. And what I mean by ad hoc, it's when I can. Because honestly, again, I am not going to stress myself out. It was too much to be testing a trail only for nobody or one person or 2 people to turn up. But then it got to a point when I think earlier this year when I was actually going to completely shut down the group, and God told me to keep going because of the odd person that would come and speak to me and just get that encouragement for me. But it's not like we've had that many hikes this year either, because the way that I've run it this year was just through polls. Are you interested in coming? If there's, a certain amount of people who say that are going to attend, we'll go for it. If not, we're not going to go for it. Again, like I said, nobody's really turning up. So I have changed it for next year that there's fixed dates once a month when we're going to go on hikes. If you come, you come. If you don't come, it is what it is. So I'm doing that now. So it's not really ad hoc per se. There's fixed dates now. The thing is, like prior to ChatGPT, we thank God for chat. Prior to ChatGPT, I would actually spend about 4 hours once a year prepping the trails. So I'd have all of them in, I'd have the details. I'd have like whether they were safe for families and things like that. I'd have the parking and all that information. I spent about 4 hours doing that. But thank God for technology, because I just had to get chat to do some research for family trails and things like that in my local area, and the parking and stuff. And all I had to do was double check it to see if it was correct. In some cases it was not, and in some cases it was. So I just fixed that. And all of that didn't take me more than an hour, including creating the calendar file, which is a bit of Python code. So created that and, created a calendar file to send to every single person so that they can import it into their calendar. So I did all of that just so that everybody has whatever they need, etc., etc. And it's better than, being stressed or whatever, knowing that I don't have to test the trails, knowing that I don't have to, ask if everyone's coming or not. It is happening. If you want to come, you come. This is an opportunity for my family to hike, at least. At least my family gets to go out and enjoy the creation that God has created. So I feel like that was one practice of myself giving myself grace. And I feel like something in the past couple of weeks that I have really been intentional about is giving myself grace, myself grace for a lot of things. I do have a tendency of taking things on, but I have to give myself grace. So I've been trying my best to be intentional about that. I've also been very intentional about forgiving myself, being easy on myself, because sometimes I look back at stuff and think like, okay, when I was in that state of unforgiveness, I was really hyper-focused on this issue, for example. And now with divine wisdom, thank God, I've been able to look at the situation with different eyes and I've seen it differently, and I've understood it, and I understand it now in a different way. So last week I was like really beating myself up, and then this week I was like, no, I'm not going to allow the devil to steal my joy and to let me just kind of go backwards, because if you start to beat yourself up, then it kind of like reverberates in all areas of your life, and you start to kind of be negative Nancy to people around you, just everybody, when in actual fact I'm in a really good place. Glory be to God. And if I forgive myself, then I'm open to forgiving others. If I forgive myself, I'm open to the love that one's supposed to give to others, because I love myself enough to love others. So yeah, what else? This week, the past couple of weeks have been quite interesting. I'm trying to think if there's any particular books I've listened to that I haven't shared with you guys. Not really, because I probably have actually listened to a couple of books because I tend to just listen to them constantly through Audible. But none really stand out to me right now. I'm currently listening to a book about a Philistine girl who went into Hebrew territory. It's very interesting. Haven't finished it though, so I wouldn't be able to speak on it as much. It's really, the story is following the Ark of the Covenant. Is that? Yeah. It's following the Ark. So this is kind of like Old Testament based book kind of thing. Really interesting. I'm quite interested to see where it goes. I've got a feeling that it's kind of romance. It's probably going to have a romance type of vibe, but so far so good. There's been a couple books that were terrible. Oh my gosh, that I've that I've tried to listen to, and I literally was like, I can't do this. But I'm not going to share it because, don't like taking money out of people's pockets. So yeah, I'm not going to really do that. In my personal opinion, it was terrible. However, it had several positive reviews. So subjective, art is subjective. So yeah, honestly, there's not much that I can share. I am grateful that my life is somewhat mundane. The thing is that a lot of people chase chaos because of, the way they've been brought up, or because they feel like chaos is normal. I like the fact that my life is full of routine. I like the fact that my life is full of, expected stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like the most that I'm going to get when it comes to a little bit of, drama would be traffic. So traffic is probably the closest thing to drama that I get in my life. I've got a very peaceful life, got a great husband, got great kids. Have no complaints. Glory be to God. So I don't really have much to complain about or to worry about. Glory be to God. Actually, this is actually interesting. So my husband and I recently purchased a bread maker. And the thing about this bread maker is it allows you to really explore the world of bread. So the thing is, I don't consume bread as much. We bought this bread maker for our kids because they love bread, and they're kids, so you're not really going to be like, oh, don't eat, don't eat all this bread, you might get fat or whatever. We're not going to say that to them. So it's, and the thing is, they're very active boys, they're very athletic, so it's not really a problem. They just eat the bread and enjoy the bread. So we've been getting very creative with bread. We found like Korean bread, and this particular recipe is absolutely divine. So like I said before, I'm not one to consume bread that often, because I'm very conscious of the fact that if I eat an excessive amount of bread, I'll most likely gain weight. And I'm quite conscious of that. And unfortunately, I wouldn't say that I'm as active as I should be this year. Last year was really good when it came to activity, me being active, and the past few years where I was really good. But this year, I would say I've been absolutely woeful. I have not worked out at all. I haven't worked out. The closest thing to working out is dropping my kids off to school. And that's just from my car to the drop-off gate, which is what? A 2-minute stroll, okay? Probably not even that. So I haven't really worked out that often. So I've been very intentional about the food that I eat. So my husband and I, we eat loads of salads. We eat very well. So we're very clean eaters. So we know we haven't been working out, and we know we're very honest with ourselves. We know we're not going to work out this year. So this is why you do New Year, New Me, right? So 2025, we'll approach it differently. However, this year, we just know we're not going to. So we've been very intentional about the way we eat. So we've been eating loads of salads, only brown rice, only whole wheat pasta, all that type of stuff. Very, very intentional. However, this bread maker has really been, it's been testing me, okay? And yeah, so basically, my husband made some really nice omelette, and we had the omelette with the Korean bread. And I've actually been dreaming about this bread with the egg. So as somebody who doesn't necessarily consume bread that often, I actually had to rebuke the spirit of gluttony in my life. And I know that I'm being extra, but honestly, I was dreaming about the bread with the egg, so much so that it was kind of like trying to find ways to be like, okay, we're going to have the bread with the egg. So how are we going to offset the fact that I have consumed this bread in the rest of our diet? Do you know what I mean? And the thing is, it wasn't really possible. It wasn't really a possibility. This is honestly, this is me waffling. I'm just talking about bread at the moment, but it's obviously because I'm in love with this bread, this, Korean bread. Oh, literally everybody is in love with the bread in the house, minus my eldest son, because my eldest son I don't know, he's just not into bread. We thought he was, but it's always been a thing where we've kind of had to force him to eat the bread for breakfast because we didn't know what else he would like, because we've tried so many different things. We've now come to the conclusion that he's more of a fruit person for breakfast, and we're okay with that. We're at peace with that because he has a very big lunch and all of that stuff. So it's like, cool, you're not going to eat the bread, that's fine. My youngest son will cry for the bread. That's how deep his love for the bread is. If he's not going to get the bread, he will cry. He will make a whole tantrum for the bread. And you know what? I feel it. I feel it in my soul when he does it. I'm like, you know what? I feel it. I get it. We'll make sure that we fit it in your daily schedule somehow for you to consume the bread. I had a dream about donuts, bread, donuts, bread. What was in the dream? So there's this Nigerian dish called puff puff. Puff puff, the Korean bread, some Krispy Kreme donuts. It was literally a buffet, and I was outside of this room. I go into the room now because I see this buffet of bread, donuts, Korean bread, whatever. Yeah? I fill up my plate. Also, this Naples dessert thing. It's this Naples kind of donut thing. I fill up my plate with all of this. So I've entered this room with all the food. I've entered the room. Just before I'm about to start digging into this plate full of beautiful goodness, right? I get stopped and said, you need to, before you get to eat the bread, you need to play this game. So the game, and then I said, okay, what do I win? What do I win when I finish playing this game? And then they said, you win your freedom. I'm like, huh? I'm a prisoner? So I entered a room just because of food, just because of the spirit of gluttony. I entered this room because of the food. I had to play this specific game. And if I won the game the first time round, I get my freedom. If I didn't win the game on the first time round, I have to keep playing until I'm let free. I was like, So I entered this room and I didn't even know that I entered it I reject it in Jesus' name. Thank God that I played the game and I had experience with such games. I won it. And I left. I didn't even eat the food because I was like, yo, I entered this room because of the food. I am not going to eat this. So I finished the game and left immediately. But that dream has literally stayed with me because I was like, I need to be mindful of this whole thing about, food, because obviously my husband and I are very intentional about what we eat, but I think it might be getting to the point where we're restricting ourselves too much to the point that we're now, dreaming about food and could entrap ourselves just because of this gluttony. So after the dream, I made sure that I didn't limit myself to certain things. It's just that I've been making sure that I'm having small bites of them. So I'm like, okay, if I want to have the bread, I'm going to have a small bite of the bread, just at least so I know that I've had the bread. If I want to have, like, my husband made cake, usually I would have been like, no, I'm not going to eat the cake because it's cake. Oh, no, I need to make sure that I keep to the strict diet. I consumed the cake and I was very happy. So now I'm no longer having dreams of food, we thank God. And I reject the spirit of gluttony because it is truly a spirit. But yeah, guys, it's so random, I know. But that is what it is. I mean, I don't have anything else to share with you other than that. So I hope you guys have a great week. And by the grace of God, you guys are going to give yourself grace in everyday tasks and in your everyday life. I pray that you give yourself grace and God gives you peace. I pray that your life will be peaceful. I reject chaos in your life. I pray abundance over your life. I pray that you will just experience all the goodness and mercies that will follow you all the days of your life because you love Christ. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you guys for listening. Bye-bye.